Sometimes our hardest, darkest moments can lead us to our purpose. For myself and 6-time Pro Bowl wideout Brandon Marshall, that was the case. We want to use what we learned from our mental health journeys to help you in navigating the uncertainty we are all facing during this pandemic.
First, just thank you for taking the time to, have this conversation with me. Obviously, we're all social distancing. We're all trying to keep ourselves healthy, our families healthy, our communities healthy. But as you and I know, like through personal, real experiences, it's not just about building up your immune system. It's not just about going to the gym and staying healthy in that way. It's also about being mentally healthy.
That's right.
Like situations like this, I think when you're presented with, uncertainty or something that takes you out of your routine or pulls those things and strips us of those things that provide an escape for us, it can be uncomfortable. And that can cause unresolved trauma to really rise to the surface and create those mental breakdowns.
Yes.
And so, we're all in this. It impacts us all in different ways. But I guess just from your experience, personally, what are some things off the field, or is there an experience off the field that has really prepared you for the uncertainty of a moment like this, which was obviously
Yeah. I think, when you talk about what has the things off the field, on the field, what are some of those things that help me prepare for this moment? I just think, athletes are trained to have that type of resolve or that mental fortitude to fight. But it's not always good to fight. Sometimes it's good to just let go and ask for help. So I do think there's a lot of things that sports have helped me, for moments like this. But the biggest thing that's helped me was, when I went to McLean Hospital for 3 months and picking up all those skills and tools that I needed. I was in dialectical behavior therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, self-assessment, mentalization, and I learned so much. So all of those skills and tools that I gathered then, I'm able to apply during this time now. I think, the coolest thing about your platform, my platform right now is people need to hear from us. Yeah. They need to hear from patients, right? Like we've been through it already. And the reason why it's important that they hear from us is because there's so many people right now dealing with anxiety and depression for the very first time because of quarantine, because of isolation. And as you know, that first experience, those first couple of weeks, those first couple of months could be life-changing. And if we don't approach our mental health, our mental fitness right now, we can lose a lot of people.
Yeah. Obviously we went through some things, both of us, and, very publicly, you more so than me, because you were more important in the sports world, but still to have stuff in the newspaper, on TV and stuff about your worst moments, it's tough. But I think, also, from my experience, I'm better for it.
Yes.
But I think so many people in sports, they have all of this trauma in their life that they may not even realize or understand that they've gone through. And, they take it and they're hyper focused on their training, on just grinding. And so it's not until after they're done in playing their sport that they start to feel some of the impacts and some of the struggles of that. I think, for you, this was your first year without the NFL. So without those, the coaches and that team environment and the competition, I think a lot of people now may begin to feel some of that disconnect and connect a little bit more with that trauma, but not know how to navigate it because they haven't been doing the work. I guess how did you navigate this time in this first year where, now I have to figure out, where my time is going. And, I see you in the gym still, but what does that look like? How does it change?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. In 2011 is when I spent 3 months on campus at McLean Hospital, and I learned so much, and it really was, it was transformational. After that, I started focusing on development, not only professionally, but personally. And I started doing case study. I did a case study with Harvard. We spent a couple of months studying influencers like Magic Johnson, Keanu Reeves, Michael J. Fox, Live Strong, Lance Armstrong. And there's a lot of things that jumped out to me. And it was how the professional athlete or that successful person struggles when they no longer have that thing that made them the person, right? Yeah. So I started preparing for that. You know, that was back in 2014, 2015. I started putting this plan together. Even going on TV, it was only because it was part of the plan. The plan was when football's taken away, I would still have a platform to advocate and tell the story of mental health. So I never wanted to just do TV, and it's still not even my passion. It's still part of the plan. So I thought I was prepared. You know, we see the statistics, we hear about them all the time, how many guys struggle when they leave the sport. And it wasn't until it was a couple of nights before Christmas when I was 2018, my last year playing ball, Coach Payton comes in and he cuts me. He's like, hey, we're going to go in another direction. Long story short. Yeah. Okay. Was kind of in shock, maybe a little devastated because I'm thinking like, this is it. You know, there's no more football. I've been doing it since I was a baby, you know, organized since at 6 years old, but playing since I've been 2-3 years old. Right. And this is it. This is the only thing I've ever done in my life. And I remember sitting in bed for 2 days and I couldn't move. And the only reason why I got out of bed because my family was flying in from Seattle at the time for Christmas. And that's when I realized, like, you know what, there's some things you can't prepare for. I've spent 4 or 5 years preparing for this exact moment so I don't feel this way. And I actually sat there and almost in awe and an out-of-body experience, like, wow, this is what they're talking about. So that moment was, it was tough, but my family helped me. And then also House of Athlete helped me as well. Because when I walked in here, I realized that this is the way to advocate. This is the way to get people help, is going through the side of performance and not the side of mental health, where there's so much stigma, so clinical, the conversation's hard. So if I can look at you and say, look, let's just unlock our full potential. Let's lose weight. Let's get in shape. Let's cut our body fat in half. Let's get our cholesterol to an all-time low. And then after we build a relationship and a rapport, and I'm like, you know, how's your mental fitness? Oh, yeah, I think I may be dealing with anxiety. You know, I fought depression. I still fight depression. Well, let me get you help. We have resources here. And I found that was so much more impactful than doing what we were doing on Project 375 side. So that is the thing here at House of Athlete is how do we holistically help people? You know, there's really a thin line between physical and mental. You know, you have to approach both the same.
Yeah, and it's different in the sports world. I think that's part of the reason I want to have these conversations. Like you said off the top, you know, we can put all the doctors out there and all the professionals, but, you know, the way so many of us were brought up in the sports world, we're not wired to necessarily hear that and respond to that. We're better at responding and hearing things that people we can relate to say. So if you or I say, you know, I could have never imagined being in this situation, but yet I was there. It's easier to be like, oh, let me hear, like, for real? Like, let me hear that out. You know, I've heard you say a number of times, you know, in the last decade, just, you know, that time at McLean Hospital that you've referenced a couple of times really brought you to your purpose. And, you know, what you just essentially said, you know, prior to that, prior to your diagnosis, how did you define your purpose? Because I think a lot of people right now, they define their purpose through their career, or they may define their purpose through, you know, the ability to provide for their family, things they may not be able to do right now in the middle of this pandemic when they're being told to stay home. So, you know, during that time before your diagnosis, how did you define your purpose? And then did you understand the importance, like just how important it would be to have a purpose that reaches beyond football?
Well, yeah, that's good. So in 2010 is when I gave my life to Christ, and you know, going into church, you know, football defined me. And I always, as a kid going, Southern Baptist, going in and out of churches, but, didn't understand Christianity, didn't understand the word. And it wasn't until I was at Redeeming Word Christian Center, where Pastor Ed and Yvette Brinson, where I really understood, where it was revealed to me that it's like a lifestyle, right? And it was there that, I found my purpose. It was there when I realized that my purpose wasn't football, and it wasn't the main thing, and it wasn't as important as I thought it was, right? So I began this journey, and then you fast forward to 2011 when I'm at McLean Hospital, and it all came together, right? So I remember for a year straight just giving my life to Christ and thinking that everything was going to be great, but things got actually worse. But I'm still calling out to God. I'm still praying. I'm like, just give me clarity, give me clarity, give me clarity. And I'm at fast forward, I'm at McLean Hospital, and every morning on my knees praying. And there was one morning where I'm on my knees and I just start laughing. I start smiling, like literally, this is true. And I start smiling. I couldn't pray. And it was the first time I realized that it was a prayer being answered that I remember, right? Where I'm like, wow, I've been praying for clarity and praying for you to help me break this generational curse. And it's happening right now. And I just start smiling and laughing on my knees. And then at McLean Hospital, I realized how he wanted to use me, and that was help bridge the gap in the mental health community. So that it's just been a journey for me. And I would say it started spiritually, and then medically coming together. I was like, okay, wow, he wants to use my pain to fulfill my purpose. So it's been really interesting. It's still a fight. It's a tough fight because we don't, not everyone makes it. We lose people. And that's the reality of the thing that we advocate for every single day. But I'm excited to be in this position now on the side of performance through House of Athlete, because I'm noticing that it's an easier conversation. If you see a lot of our stories that we tell, you can follow us today and you'll see we're talking about mental fitness. Like that's the number one message for us. You'll see some of our most amazing pieces that we put out there. Someone maybe at the end say, yeah, I've dealt with anxiety, right? Well, I thought you guys were like a gym. I thought you guys were just some fitness facility, and what we've realized is that, you need to approach your physical and your mental the same.
Yeah. And that's so different from the world that like you and I grew up in, where, I think instead of using that and taking that time to really understand our trauma and understand, maybe our triggers, the things that make us anxious, the things that are causing that depression, the things that are causing that anger or whatever it may be. We were taught, I feel like in sport, to channel that and say, man, you went through some things, but like put that into like your work ethic, like grind harder, work harder. And so I remember for me, for 15 months in the hospital, I was so confused. Like, it was, 15 months in the hospital after my suicide attempt. I'm like, how the hell am I here? I'm too tough. I'm too strong. That's what my career, this sport, like climate that we're in taught me, that I was better than this. I was better and stronger and tougher and smarter than being someone that found myself in such a toxic relationship, being someone that found myself the only way out of my marriage through, trying to commit suicide, because, for me, that stuff was associated with people that, they didn't look like me. I didn't know what it was, but I hadn't really spent time.
Weak. Yeah. As athletes, we're taught to mask pain.
Yes.
If you're not an athlete, if you're not tough.
Exactly. So like, it was mind boggling for me, because I'm like, I've never had suicidal ideations. I've never thought or considered harming myself. Like I was all about some me. Like I worked hard and I earned the ability to be like proud of what I accomplished. So to be at that low, I was lost. And I think, if and I'm sure there's a lot of those same similarities when, you think back to, you were diagnosed at McLean Hospital with borderline personality disorder. And I'm sure that's not something when you were training and you were, some of that, what made you, was probably tied to that, but you didn't understand it. And so you find yourself in these situations where you're just like how am I here? How is this my story? It doesn't align with the way I see myself or the way you may see yourself. But I guess if you had to think back to, a decade and a half ago to your senior year at UCF, knowing all of the stuff you know now just about mental health, what would you have told yourself then about what you were about to enter into in terms of the NFL, professional sports, and just everything that comes into that? Because at that point, it's not just sports. And even in college now, it's not just sports. It's a business. It's more than that. So what would that conversation with yourself, a senior at UCF, be like?
Yeah, you know what? I probably would have leaned more into FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I used to go, but it really didn't hit me. We used to meet at the lake on campus, and I probably would have leaned there because if I would have knew then what I knew now, I would have realized how important a tribe is, how important community is. I don't think it would have alleviated all of the pain and stress that I was going to go through, but I would have probably been able to go through it with someone else. For me, I carried all that myself. And the most important thing that we need is a community. We need a team. We need that tribe. So I would have tried to figure out how to put that team together and lean on them, and open up to them. That was the biggest thing in my story. Is I made it to the NFL and I felt like I was Atlas. I had my entire family, on my shoulders, my mom, my dad, my brothers and sisters, my nieces and nephews. I had cousins, I have aunts, and it's a little bit, it's part of our culture. We have this tight knit community. I remember growing up and, we run out of sugar. My mom's like, go next door and ask Miss Veronica if they have any sugar. And that was just a thing. Or they would come over like, hey, y'all got a loaf of bread? You know what I mean? But then the next day we're fighting and arguing with each other. So we have this mentality, this tribe mentality, which is great in our community, but it's also, there's a negative side. When someone makes it, everybody think they make it. And that's the story. That's a common story. It's not a unique story. It's a common story for the successful athlete or entrepreneur, writer, politician, that come out of our neighborhoods. It's like, oh, now we all made it. And that's not true. Putting that pressure on one individual could be devastating. And it led me to McLean Hospital.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, like now, as we're starting to hopefully change the narrative with conversations like this, people are saying, check on your strong friend. Because, in a lot of circles, like, I was that strong person. My family counted on me. My friends would talk to me. And I would tell my friends, like talk to me about it. Like, if you're struggling, like, I want to hear that. But I also never felt like I could just talk about my stuff freely because I was supposed to be a leader. And I think some of what I've learned now is part of being that leader is showing, hey, like, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, hey, this was hard for me, but I figured it out, and this is how you can figure it out.
It's interesting that you said that. A lot of people don't know when you talk about suicide, that people think that it's a thing that you just think about all the time. No, like, it happens like that. Someone, like you said, strong, never contemplated it before. It just happens like that. And it lasts, literally, the average, it lasts 20 minutes. Yeah. Right? Like 20 minutes. You have a 20-minute. A lot of people have a 20-minute time frame where it's either, they get the help they need or they don't, right? And I think that's important, because you said something very powerful, because there's a lot of stigma around mental health. There's a lot of stigma around suicide. And it's important for us to get the right information out there. And for you to say it is like, it was just like, bam.
Yeah, I think, for me, I think what's, and it's not everyone's story. Some people that do try to take their own life, they have had those suicidal ideations. That's a real thing. That just wasn't my story. And I think I share my story and my experience because I don't ever want someone to think that I'm good. That would never be me. That could never happen to me. I would have said the exact same thing. Like, I didn't, and even probably moments before, I just wanted out. I just wanted out of my relationship, really. Like, I was bluffing. I was like, I'm going to do this. And then, you know, he'll go away. That didn't work out. And then you're like, what do I do now? And it was just a quick reaction thing, because, you know, I think, you know, you want to be loyal, you want to do whatever. And when somebody constantly is saying, you know, their biggest insecurity is that you're going to leave them, when you do leave them, you prove them right. And I struggled with that because I wanted to support, you know, the people around me. I wanted to be strong, but it was killing me. You know, I think a lot of
powerful.
Say what?
This is so powerful, your story.
No, thank you. Yours is too. I think, you know, a lot of people right now are experiencing some of their hardest, darkest moments. And I don't know about you. I think, you know, what that was, the stuff that was written about me before, and me being in the hospital and having to read about like all my stuff and all of that, that stuff, it wasn't all factual. You know, I think when you have some of these domestic violence cases and stuff, it's only you and that person. So no one knows what's going on in those things except for those people. But, you know, I think we live some of our stuff very publicly, but I think right now people are experiencing some of the hardest, darkest moments of their lives. And, you know, I think for me, that hardest, darkest moment, it really brought about the best things about me. I've been able to channel some of those things in my work ethic, and some of those things that I used maybe to not deal with my trauma. I still have my work ethic. I work extremely hard, but now I'm better about sleeping. I'm better about doing those little things, having like real conversations. You know, if I need talk therapy, I'll go do talk therapy. That's not something like I was doing before. So it's made me better. And I think when you talk about, you keep referring back to, you know, 2011 and going to McLean Hospital, and, you know, very publicly, and, you know, for people that don't know, borderline personality disorder is just kind of characterized by emotional instability. So you can have high highs and low lows. And I think, you know, having watched, you know, your career, you know, that first half, you know, it was awesome on the field. You were having success. You were killing it. But then there were also these low lows off the field that we saw. You know, we saw the domestic violence stuff. We saw your wife's name in the paper and stuff. And I know you have said that your wife, Michi, was your inspiration for getting the help you needed and bringing you to where you're at now, where you can make a difference with your story. I guess, what would you say to people right now about, you know, that are experiencing their hardest, darkest moments, about how to get through and really maybe use this as an opportunity to become mentally healthier from this adversity?
Yeah, I mean, right now, like we said earlier, you know, all of us are experiencing something right now. And we've never been in this situation before. And I think the more we talk about our stories and the more we put this stuff out there, I truly believe there's going to be somebody out there saying, you know what, let me pick up the phone and just call somebody, a friend, you know, a loved one. You know, if I have access to talk therapy, you know, maybe it's the 1-800 helpline, you know, just picking up the phone and just talking. That would be the biggest thing. And that's what I didn't do back then. When you talked about that first half of my career, I just held all that stuff in. And, you know, when I began to open up and talk about these things, I realized other parts of myself that I had no clue of, right? I didn't know I had resentment issues. I didn't know, you know, I felt, you know, I didn't even know I was depressed. I didn't know I was dealing with isolation. I didn't know that, you know, because as an athlete, all I thought was, you know, no pain. You know, this can't be me. You know, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to continue to perform. And this is what I'm here to do. So it's football, and then it's home, football, and then there's home. There was nothing else for me. So I think the biggest takeaway for me, the call to action is, one, we need people to understand that what you're going through is real. It's common. All of us are dealing with it. And two, seek help. And it doesn't have to be a doctor. Just talk. Just open up. If you feel something, open up. And if you go to the right person, they're going to help you navigate through that and get you the help you need. But just say, I need help.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something that was powerful, and that was similar to my experience in terms of saying you wouldn't have described yourself as being depressed, where, that was the same thing for me. Even when I was in the hospital and I was trying to figure out how I ended up there, I was thinking back to like, my marriage, but I would have never described, even at that point, after I went through it initially, I would have never described it as depression, what I was feeling. I was angry. Like I was pissed off. Like I wanted to like break things. Like I was angry. And I don't think people sometimes I think have a picture in their mind of what depression looks like. People sitting, alone in the dark, crying, whatever it is. And I think it's important for people to understand, it doesn't always, depression doesn't look one way. It can manifest different ways based on who you are and how you're wired.
So good.
Yeah. And I think from what you just said, though, I think, access to mental health care isn't close to where it should be in this country. So for people who, may want to do talk therapy, but can't afford it, or for people that want to start working on themselves and working on their mental health, but are also very uncomfortable with calling a hotline or calling a professional. I guess, do you have any advice based on like your experience and just learning yourself or, studies that you've done, like just diving into books and learning and talking to people that you would say in terms of how they can help become a student of like their own mind and do some of the work themselves if they want to take that step, but they're not all the way there?
Yeah, this is hard. This is going to be hard to say, but I'm always going to push people to do the right thing. And the right thing is you can't do it alone. So I'm sorry, I can't, just because like we gotta be comfortable with the uncomfortable. If we want to change, we want to be transformed, like we got to dive into that pain. So yeah, I can sit here and say, I know you don't want to talk to someone. I know you don't want to, call that 1-800 hotline or whatever. You're uncomfortable with that. So let me try to give you other ways, but those other ways don't work. Like we need to lean on people that are experienced, professionals, people that are validating. We can't carry it alone. So I'm always going to push people to open up and lean on the professionals, lean on people that has the experience. Even you and I, some way we go from patients to providers. Just hearing our stories is helpful. There's so many people that I've come across is like, man, it was about to be over for me. And I just went on YouTube and just Googled or YouTubed borderline personality disorder, and then your story came up. And I was like, wow, there's hope. And that was same for me when I was at McLean Hospital. The first week there, they had a workshop, and they had all these world-renowned doctors there talking about just mental health, talking about borderline, talking about dialectical behavior therapy. And it was great. It was my wife and I sitting in there. And then there was this one panel, and there was 4 patients up there talking about their experience. And that was the most powerful thing for me ever, because it was the first time that I saw someone dealing with what I was dealing with. And I saw hope, and I was inspired. And right then I was like, you know what? I can do it. If they can do it, I can do it.
No, absolutely. Just from, the outside view, it seems like, on social media and stuff, it seems like you're always working out. You're always, in the gym, whether it's like midnight, like 5 a.m., whatever it is, it seems like you're able to really, still grind and work. I think, obviously in the past, be that the last 30 years or your time in the NFL, you were able to set like very clear goals. Like, hey, I'm going to grind and I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to become a Pro Bowl wideout, or I'm going to grind and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to set this receiving record, or I'm going to grind and I'm going to try to make sure that I'm set to have a career that's longer than most people have in the NFL. I guess, right now with people, at home, maybe struggling to be motivated and create structure and have some of that self-discipline, what's it been for you that made it, something that where you're able to still do that without, the same demands and the same coaches around you and that same, tribe that comes with sport?
Yeah. So, I've always, House of Athlete, we live by 5 pillars. We stand on 5 pillars, and those 5 pillars become our lifestyle. And we believe if you do these things, you'll unlock your full potential. If you're a professional athlete, if you're an actor, you're an entertainer, if you're a nurse, if you're a teacher, you're in construction, it doesn't matter. We all need to do these 5 things. Train. We need to fuel correctly. So what are we putting in our bodies? We need to be mentally fit, whether it's talk therapy or meditation. 4th is recover, right? Like sometimes we need to go on vacation. Right now, what does vacation look like for us? It may be a walk. It may be going to the park, doing a picnic, or jumping in the pool if you're in South Florida and you're in California. And the last thing is tribe, like team. We got to have people in our lives right now that we can do life with, open up, talk to, that's going to carry us, push us, cry with us, laugh with us. All right. So now, obviously, we have to be creative. So what does train look like now? You know, we might have to take an online class. You know, we may need to clear out the garage and turn the garage into a home gym with the equipment that we have. I'm seeing all kinds of people being out there, being creative, using broomsticks and babies and luggage. It's just awesome. Fuel, we still have access to fuel, but that is a struggle. There are people who don't have job and have no income coming in. How are we feeding them? And that's a bigger question, you know, and that's a bigger problem that we need to figure out as a country, because we've never seen something like this, right? So there's a lot of people sitting at home and have no income, and we need to figure out how do we get them the correct things that they need, the right things that they need. So we need to be creative in those 5 areas, but we need to keep it going. And like you said a few minutes ago, routine is everything. Continue to maintain a routine, your sleep patterns, when you're eating, how you're eating, when you're working out, like try to do the same things at the same times every day.
Yeah. One of the things you and your wife, Michi, have been doing now through your foundation, Project 375, and your company, House of Athlete, have been really supporting our medical professionals on the front lines, making sure they have spaces to recover, make sure they have nutritional food options to eat. I've seen you on video stressing the importance of make sure you get some sleep. I know you're grinding, but you got to come back and continue to help save our communities. And so you need to make sure you're good to make sure that you can, do that. What are some things, if people want to get involved, if people want to help with some of the work you guys are doing, what are some things they can do to help you guys and help support what y'all are doing?
Yeah, 2 things, awareness and also funding. So we're raising a lot of money right now, and everything matters, everything counts. A lot of people are focused on supplies, ventilators, masks, gowns for our nurses and our doctors. But we also need to focus on making sure that our nurses and doctors are taken care of. So for us, please follow us online, follow us on social media, repost our stories, get our message out there so more hospitals, more individuals in different communities are doing the same things that we're doing, because we're only one company. We're going to make a massive impact globally, but we're one company. So help us spread the word, and then also go to houseofathlete.com and donate if you can. $1 is more than enough. If you can do 10, amazing. It's in great hands, and we're going to make sure that we get it to our caregivers so that they're here for the long haul, right? Because you think about this thing that we're fighting called the beast, all right? We're already understaffed from a medical standpoint going into this thing. Now we're not prepared. We have probably 10, 15% of the workforce walking out or sick, and it's tough. So we have a group of individuals that's supposed to carry us for the next 2-3 months. We need them to recover. So we need to make sure that we're getting them everything they need.
Is it just House of Athlete on social media, your handle?
So on social media, it's the House of Athlete. All right. And our website is houseofathlete.com. All right. Good question. Thank you.
No, of course. Again, I think you're doing an awesome thing. I think you're doing a lot of great work, with House of Athlete. I followed it. And so, anything that I can do and that other people can do, I want to make sure they can get there. And actually, if they want to help, can do that.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Is there anything else that you would like to say just about mental health and what people are going through at this time, or any advice, wisdom that you'd like to pass on and really wrap this all up with?
No, I just think we covered it all. Is just get it. Right now we're all going through something right now, and when you feel you need to talk to someone, talk to someone. And I think that's the most important thing.
I can't end it any better than that. So thank you so much, Brandon, for doing this with me, having this conversation. Hopefully it'll help a lot of people, and hopefully we'll, after this, continue to use this time and the uncertainty and use what we've learned through some of our darkest moments to really shine a light and start this conversation and make sure that people are understanding how important their mental health is right now.
Thank you.